my background, I come from Forbes, where I covered billionaires, where I covered Nigeria, where I covered Dangote, who happens to be the richest African currently. And currently there are known billionaires from the African continent, 46. And I say known because a lot is unknown. You mentioned the Pandora Papers. But I think it's important to understand this urbanization for our audience, and this private wealth that is being generated, because sometimes, so often, we don't hear that story. And I think for us in the US, for marketers, for politicians looking at Africa, there's, I think, huge potential. Again, looking forward in the next decade, I see as a huge decade of change. What do you think? Am I being too Pollyanna-ish?
Not necessarily, but I'm going to get into the politics for a minute too. I think this week I saw that peak NBC Universal, that they signing a deal with what's known as MultiChoice. It's a South African company that basically dominates satellite broadcasting in the rest of the continent, entertainment, sports, etc. And they had their own streaming service called Showmax, which you could, that's kind of the equivalent of like a Hulu or something. And they just signed a deal with NBC Universal that Peacock's, their streaming service Peacock, the people which is a US based, the people in Africa can get access to that content, HBO, etc. Now, when I read the story, I think in the Hollywood Reporter, it said something like the African market, so everybody knows now that there's money there. And if you just Google on YouTube, if you search on YouTube, Google is now a verb, but if you search on YouTube, you'll see, I mean, if you just type in something like Afrochella, which just happened in Ghana, where you have every Christmas, you now have plane loads of the children of the diaspora. In other words, their parents migrated to Western Europe and the United States or North America. They come back for this sort of like almost month-long jamboree of like hanging out in Ghana, going to parties, spending their money, investing. It's become so there's money. This is true. I just wrote a blog post the other day for the London Review of Books about the murder of a South African rap star, AKA, where he's top of the charge in South Africa. But the interesting part of his story was at his memorial service, what became clear that there was this whole new generation of Black South Africans who all went to private schools and who are making money, because the sort of general tale is like, you're accumulating wealth through the state. And if you're not accumulating wealth through the state, you're accumulating it like Dangote or Motsepe in South Africa, mining, manufacturing, etc. No, they're doing it. It's entertainment. It's what do you call it? The service industry. So there's a whole class of people, computing, programming. I mean, I think I saw a story a while back, Apple, Microsoft wanting to go to Nigeria, Facebook's putting up a huge office in Kenya. So yeah, they hold young people as a phenomena. That is definitely, and you're right, it's a growing market. They're connected to the rest of the world. They fly, it's a kind of cosmopolitan class. At the same time, I think the Nigerian elections again shows you that there's a difference between politics on social media and kind of actual. So a lot of the complaints after elections like, we got robbed. But there's been articles that basically shows you the turnout was something like 29% of registered voters. So less than a third of registered voters turned up. And Tinubu, I think he won with like something like not high 30s of that vote, of that registered vote. So this idea that before the election, all you got was this impression that there was this like, Obi was riding the wave of something called the Obedience, I mean, what a name, and that they were going to turn up at the polls, change Nigerian elections, because there's this echo chamber of like Twitter, that social media, but they didn't register to vote. They didn't turn up to vote. I would venture to say I think that's what happened in South Africa also. Fees must fall, roads must fall. Fundamentally, I think challenged the political deal of 1994 and questioned, like, how that political deal came about, its consequences for generations after that, that you couldn't really change the economy, that you had to, you know, in a country that's racially unequal, that has this legacy, that you could not do it because you had set certain rules in place, right? And they said, we need to change this. And if the government is serious, we need to, if we want to de-racialize the education, we have to provide free higher education, we can afford it, etc. But then when that was over, the talk was like, will they turn that into some kind of an electoral base or something? Like, and I could just, as an aside, mention what happened in Chile. The people in government in Chile now, they were leading those protests about a decade ago about education. So that did not happen in South Africa.